Going live in 3, 2, 1. All right, what is going on, guys? It is Adam, a.k.a. Marf. We are live, and of course, we're going to get right into it. North Korea warns of armed force conflict after nuclear-powered U.S. submarine docks in South Korea. Now, there's more to this than the usual, them flipping out about the U.S. Parking a nuclear submarine here. Now, there's a lot of weird stuff going on in South Korea in general. And if you haven't been following the last few months, of course, the last president was actually impeached and, is going through this impeachment thing. And essentially, just about a month and a half ago, or December 3rd, he declared martial law. And he said, because inside of his own government, in the South Korean government, that something weird was going on, that China had infiltrated South Korea, and that people that were sympathetic to North Korea were essentially embedded into their government. And he was saying that they were all trying to go after his staff and his people and get them all impeached. Well, he ended up doing a martial law to freeze everything. He had military outside of the presidential palace. I don't know what they call their thing, the presidential home. And you had 100 plus soldiers outside guarding. And then the other party, the equivalent of their left-leaning party, was essentially doing everything for about a week to try to get in. They were saying that they wanted to take him formally. Then they ended up going in and arresting him. He ended up sitting in jail. Now, I believe he's still in jail, but he is also being impeached. And no one has asked the president about this, not that I have seen. Reuters just covered kind of a little small update, but nobody is talking about the fact that one of our major allies had the actual president of a very advanced country, one of our main key Asian allies. The president got arrested, and no one is talking about it. I have not heard almost anything from Donald or anybody else. What the hell's going on with South Korea? Why it's important is because, first of all, I believe North Korea is going to be the trigger to a bigger weapon that will fire off World War III. And that, obviously, if it is true, if any of the stuff that he is saying is true, which it makes sense that it would be quickly covered up, that China is infiltrated into South Korea and that they're fiddling with their politics, then this could mean a huge, huge deal for what has been going on. The separation of the North and the South, the blowing up of their bridges and their railroads, everything that is going on there right now is very, very crazy. Meanwhile, the U.S. and everybody else is kind of pretending this guy just didn't exist. Just forget about Yoon Suk Yeol. The president, one of the shortest serving presidents, I might add, because they straight up took him out after this whole martial law thing. Now, everybody that I have seen talk about this as far as pundits go, oh, yeah, he was, he's totally nuts. But what if he's not? First of all, the guy has never done anything crazy in his whole career. If you actually look at his past, he has moved up the ranks since he was 18 years old. There's no reason this guy would do something super, super crazy like this unless something was going on. And I do believe that it will end up being a really important part of how World War III starts. So I think that this whole North Korea thing, them threatening this, first of all, we're parking a nuclear submarine there, but yet we're still not talking about the frickin' president. North Korea on Tuesday accused the United States of a hostile military act after a U.S. Navy submarine docked in arch-rival South Korea to replenish supplies. It said, quote, "We express grave concern over the U.S. dangerous hostile military act that can lead to the acute military confrontation in the region around the Korean Peninsula to an actual armed force conflict," a defense ministry spokesperson said from KCNA, which I am literally blown away because there wasn't one mention of groveling dogs or, sickening sycophants or something. They usually write the weirdest stuff. But they put a very straightforward message. One thing I wonder is what is actually going on with China, North Korea, and Russia. We're going to talk about that today because now we're also going to mention Russia is shipping soldiers. They say injured soldiers to North Korea, but are they injured? Are they just shipping soldiers to North Korea? Is this a tit for tat in a good way for them because North Korea was sending soldiers to Russia? Now Russia's sending soldiers to North Korea. Is there about to be a South Korean, North Korean war? That would also get everything fired up. Land grabs all around. Make sure to stick around. Today is a good one. We'll be right back right after this. Nothing in this show should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The views of the callers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect my opinion, Dex's opinion, or anyone else who works with the show. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. The internet is full of fake news, so please take everything with a grain of salt. If you have not already, it helps us out if you end up going through any of our affiliates, and it helps you out if you end up protecting yourself against cybercrime. NordVPN is one of the best and one of the easiest to use. If you do not have a virtual private network, it protects your IP address, which is your online identity, which actually connects to your real address and everything else. It also connects to you. If you know anything about how they are data logging and basically getting your profiles down, you can prevent that by having a VPN. Nord is, again, one of the easiest. Download it. It's like an on switch and off switch. All you have to do. Go to marfooglenews.com/VPN. Not only will you get a giant discount on this, but you will also be helping us. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate everyone that goes through any of our affiliates. Can't say thank you enough.
Supervision flow through the system, homes go missing, except for the day I got my smoke from the corner.
All right, so there's more to this story than I think that even any of the media has reported. Whatever medias aren't funded by the last admin. So yeah, lots and lots of stuff going on. Remember, I know there's a lot of information in these shows. If you're new here, remember you can find a full bibliography of every single article, tweet, video, picture, document over on marfooglenews.com. You'll find a source list, and it is actually archived and searchable. So you can go up to that search bar and you can find pretty much anything that we have done in the past. Again, all of the links, all of the sources are right at your fingertips, so make sure to utilize it. And then, of course, on the right side of all of the show pages are all of the different affiliates. If you see an affiliate during the show that you would like to get, and you forget what the link was, all of the links are over on the side. It helps us out. We are completely independent. We're on our own, and we're up against behemoths that are going to get the first 40,000 pages of your search results. So thank you guys for helping us. The community is what drives this channel. So thank you. Let's bring in my co-host / internet brother, Dex James. What is going on, and how are you doing today?
Well, hello, Adam, and hello, Fogel fam. I'm doing mighty fine.
So the North and the South, there's been so many smaller events that actually, I mean, you don't need a crystal ball to kind of see where this is heading, but you also don't need to connect crazy dots. These are all related events, and I believe that should be called a fact. As far as the blowing up and the separation, the unification statues, the statements by them, the movement and the treaties that they've done with Russia, the stuff that's going through North Korea from China, all of this has something to do with what's going to happen in the future. No matter who is our U.S. president, I believe that this is moving forward just like I have thought it was going to move forward. Dex, as far as Russia, how does Russia fit into this? And what is the news today about Russia sending soldiers?
Yes, so this is just absolutely weird, but Russia is sending hundreds of its war wounded for treatment in North Korea, according to the ambassador.
Because
so we're to believe like the mecca of medicine for Russia is in North Korea, but that's what they're telling us. They're saying that they're taking wounded in the Ukraine and taking them to North Korea to recuperate. Now, I don't know if they're trying to make it out like they're taking them there to, relax on the beach, But it really sounds like maybe, like you said earlier, is this maybe a cover for shuffling some soldiers into North Korea?
Yeah, this does not make any sense. And again, just like when, Russia said that they were going to go visit, Cuba. It's like, oh, and they did an agreement with Cuba where Cuba said, oh, well, we could have up to 200,000 Russian tourists here at any given time. These weird things. It's like, it's so blatantly obvious to me that this is not what it looks like. North Korea, the same place that supposedly has poster boards up in their grocery stores to make it look like they have food. This is the same place that they're going to send for advanced medical treatment. I call bull. You know what? This is very, very creepy. And I believe in a few months from now, we'll look back at this and we will remember this story, and it will end up evolving into something clearly different. What do you guys think about this? Let me know in the comments down below. Russia signed the agreement with North Korea shortly after they signed this, like basically kind of a mini no limits partnership with them. Not only after they were already trading ammunition and thousands and thousands of rounds and thousands of containers of ammunition. After that, North Korea ended up going and fighting in Russia and on the front lines in Ukraine. Now, just a couple days after we covered, and we actually covered this story about where they said that all of a sudden all of the North Koreans got pulled out of the front line, that all of a sudden they disappeared. Now we have Russians going up to North Korea. Doesn't sit right with me. What do you guys think? The first thing I thought was this just does not seem right. And remember, Russia signed the same kind of treaty with Iran. And people think that this whole thing is just going to calm right down. And I just knew that something was going to go wrong. And of course, just yesterday or the day before, the whole hostage release got canceled. It's like I said it the first day. It just seems too perfect. Like, oh, this is too easy. Donald comes in and everybody's like, the world peace is going to happen. Not that I don't think that it's going to be better than the last 4 years, but I don't believe whoever was put in there, short of God himself, would be able to fix the problems here. And I think that it has been a train that has been essentially running towards a track with pennies all over it, and it's about to derail. So this is why we have told people for years to prepare, have food and water, because things are going to go south. Donald's not signing executive orders to build an immediate system, an Iron Dome system in the United States for missile defense for no reason. He's not eyeing Greenland and eyeing the Strip and eyeing Canada and eyeing the cartels in Mexico for no reason. Something is about to transpire. Do you guys agree? Do you guys disagree? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear from you. And again, we'll holler at the chat here in just a minute. All right. Yeah, it's wild. It is literally just nuts what is happening right now. And then, Dex, do you want to talk about firefighters battle the inferno after reported explosion near the Texas airport? At least 4 injured.
Well, look, I mean, we've got, it just seems like one right after another, all these little things. We don't always cover them. You don't always hear about them. But, we've had explosions at plants. We've had, smaller infractions at runways. I think Vince Neil's private jet, he wasn't on it, had a landing gear issue yesterday. And unfortunately, the pilot perished after it landed, and it crashed and it slid into another plane. So there's all these little things that are happening, and it just seems odd that they're all piling up. And the latest of these little things is there was this, explosion with a vehicle near the airport at El Paso today. And it caused a very large scale fire. It was called a Condition 4 fire. A Category 4 fire carries a very high level of danger, according to the U.S. Forestry Service. So it can spread rapidly and become long lasting. So the question is what kind of vehicle explodes and has that. I mean, it certainly could have been a tanker truck with gas in it, or maybe it was something else. But this is just happening this afternoon. So we'll probably hear more about it tomorrow, or maybe even later tonight.
Yeah, and these smaller events, people like us in our community, we see all of these. Like a few years ago when all of the different warehouses and all the different manufacturing plants all started going up. It's like they want to say that it's crazy to connect these dots and, oh, well, that's not my... Please. Every time we've connected the dots over the last 15 years, and I mean our community, it has ended up where there is some truth to it. Anytime that something can't be let go and the community just keeps saying, hey, this doesn't sit right, it almost always doesn't actually end up right. With this, it's just another case of this, like, what is going on? Same with all of the plane incidents, all of these things that are going on. It just keeps happening. And before this, people forget that, Polish prime minister said, Russia's going to be doing some sort of attack on the U.S. with planes and use cargo planes as a medium to do this, right? And then all of a sudden we have all of these issues. It's almost like somebody or a black op or something is making it look like that, or it is happening, or something is going on. But it's definitely something that I think is not what it looks like. Juby Joe, thank you. And by the way, before we move on, I do want to say I missed somebody in the Marfoogle news short. Thank you, Underdog. Thank you for supporting Independent. Says the Strip over in Gaza, the new shipping lane, the Strip is the new shipping lane. Is that correct? You did say that is the correct message, correct? That the Strip will be the new shipping lane for the Middle East. Is that what he's trying to say?
Yeah, that's what I'm taking from it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that makes sense. But we don't know what is actually going to happen with it, and we don't know what is kind of threat, what is big words to try to make actions happen. But it sounds like that's going to happen. It sounds like we are going to take the Strip, which everything is just upside down. Before we move on, I want to remind you guys we're independent. One of the biggest recommendations as far as affiliates go is the EMP shield. That's because we truly believe that this will get people to their families or get their families out to bug out. This is a device that can be put in your cars, trucks, motorcycles, boats, generators, solar, and gas, and even your ham radio or even your home. And it will protect your home and everything else against not only EMP strikes from an adversary, but it will also protect against a Carrington-level event from the sun. If you follow solar activity, then you would know over the last week there's been all sorts of crazy stuff coming our way. So again, even if the enemies don't hit us, eventually nature will. Again, go over to marfooglenews.com/EMP if you want to get $50 off per device and help the channel and get yourself prepared and even possibly save your own life. Go over to marfooglenews.com/EMP, code MARF. It's the same company that is quietly outfitting agencies like DHS, DOD, and of course the Dempsey team helping them protect the Texas grid, which all of the above have been buzzing about this since 2018. The reason why it's more likely than any of the other scenarios, more likely than an all-out mutually assured destruction war, is because they can actually EMP us, and by they I mean any of our adversaries, without taking any direct life. And we're supposed to return in kind. You would think that means that we're going to EMP them back. But if you haven't noticed, Russia and China have made serious moves super fast over the last 4 years while we paused the executive order that T-Man put into office. We paused the hardening of our grid. It was like it wasn't reinforced. Meanwhile, they have been hardening their grid. And that should say something. marfooglenews.com/EMP. Make sure to use the code MARF. Or they're supposedly doing it. So again, I guess we'll see. Yeah, you knock out the power, knock out communications. That's what anyone would do when they're knocking out anything in a military op. And that's the first thing they would do. American Marc Fogel released from Russian custody. And no, this is not Marfoogle. It is Marc Fogel. I know that a lot of people are confused here. Dex, do you want to talk about who was just released and what is going on here?
So it's an American teacher who was detained by Russia is now coming back to American soil, according to the Trump administration. They announced that today. They had a special envoy, Steve Witkoff, were able to announce that Mr. Witkoff is leaving Russian airspace with Marc Fogel. It's so close to the name, I know.
Kind of funny.
Who has been detained by Russia. That's the quote from them. So he's a history teacher from Pennsylvania, was serving a 14-year prison sentence after his arrest in August 2021 at a Russian airport for being in possession of drugs, which his family and supporters said were medically prescribed. The Mary Jane, so to speak. So I guess that got him a 14-year prison sentence, and now he is coming home.
So, again, we'll end up updating that as it goes. Rochelle Cooley, hey, thank you for the super. Randy Man, Bruno Freib, is that right? Freib? Zadizia, what's going on? Russia's hashtag cover story, Kim O'Donnell. If you're talking about the soldiers to North Korea, I agree. Anything deeper? Vivian P, what is going on? Darth V, from Russia with love. Joseph Yanni, I actually agree with that as well. He said during an interview a little bit ago that he was given 400 injections while in the hospital. Marc Fogel did. Yeah, we covered that. I would hate to be in that place. Devon Bacchus, hey, thank you for the support. Thank you for supporting Independent. I appreciate you. Maria Brownell, what is going on? Let's see here. And Shannon Sissel, Susie Q, and Lizard Hunter. Thank you, Shirley Millward. And Marie Burnell, thank you so much for being here. Zadizia, and so many more that are joining us in the chat. Make sure to share this out with your social media. Again, it is live, so the more that share it, the more people that can pop in and say hi and know that we're live. The notifications are garbage, so make sure to hit that all notifications bell or sign up for our notifications from marfooglenews.com. All right. And let's go to the next story. We have hackers leak cop manuals for departments nationwide after breaching major provider. I believe we have covered something almost every day regarding a massive leak or a massive hack. I want to say, yeah, maybe when we weren't on over the weekend, but even then we had huge major leaks. Hackers leaked thousands of files from Lexipol, a Texas-based company that developed policy manuals, training bulletins, and consulting services for first responders. This is a very creepy thing, so listen very carefully on this one. The manuals, which are crafted by Lexipol's team of public sector attorneys, practitioners, and subject matter experts, are customized to align with the specific needs of local requirements of agencies across the country. So it's the back end of what they are doing, right? But the firm also faces criticism for its blanket approach to police policies and pushback on reforms. The data, a sample of which was given to the Daily Dot by a group referring to itself as the Puppy Girl Hacker Polycule, don't ask me, includes approximately 8,543 files related to training, procedural, and policy manuals, as well as customer records that contain names, usernames, agency names, passwords, physical addresses, email addresses, and phone numbers. Among the manuals seen by the Daily Dot agency include police departments, fire departments, sheriff offices, and narcotics units. Let me just put this out there. Some of those might be a distraction from some of the bigger ones. Think about this. If we have an emergency, how will they respond to that, and where is that response in, right? These police manuals, the fire department manuals, that shows you their emergency plan for almost every major disaster. If they know how we are going to respond to a disaster, they could also hamper the response. This is a way bigger deal than I think that than we know. It might even be a cover-up for 3-letter agencies or 6-letter agencies or something else. I don't know. Seems very odd. Dex, go ahead.
Well, the other odd thing is they're fine. Some places actually publish their manuals. They make them public. So some law enforcement, some fire, departments, just depends. Some of them put it out. Some of them keep it not under secret key, but they don't publish it. But the interesting thing they're finding is how many different law enforcement agencies around the nation are using the exact same manual. In other words, they come here and just say, well, that works for us, we'll take it. And it's almost as if one location, Lexipol, is prescribing the policing policies for all these police locations around the U.S. So no, it's not necessarily developed locally. That doesn't mean that the local municipality wouldn't have the ability to approve it. It might seem lazy, or it might just seem fortuitous that they say, oh, look, we can take this and we can just adopt it. It's best practices used around the nation. So all policing starts to look the same, and policing isn't done differently based on, their elected officials or how their communities may want them to be done. If that makes sense. It just seems a little odd that they're seeing this replication everywhere.
Yeah, and again, there's the public-facing thing. I always question what the public-facing thing is, and it's something that makes total logical sense. Oh, they did it because of this, or they did it because of that, and oh, this is what they're noticing. With that, yeah, it is very interesting. But I just wonder why they need that. And I don't believe that that all of those are public. So a lot of the forward-facing ones, obviously the basic ones, but I believe that a lot of the more advanced stuff that happens, that's kind of kept on the low, especially with sensitive events and different disasters. They don't want the media and other people to know, because then they'll dig through it and go, why is there not a response for this? Why is there not this? Well, why doesn't this include if this happens? They don't want to be picked apart. So, but if you are law enforcement or a firefighter, how does it work? Let me know. Do you guys have some of the stuff that's on the back end that you would only be able to access, say, if you had passes, or if you had, employee credentials and things like that? Is there a back end to that for disaster response? Obviously, when it goes to a certain level, then it goes to FEMA, and we know how good they are at responding to disasters. But my mind went to solar winds. During solar winds, if you remember, during that hack, they accessed something very specific. And I've noticed something about almost all of the hacks. They have accessed something like employee areas. Like, did you know that during solar winds, which believe for China, Russia, whoever it is, it's one of the adversaries, hopefully, not our own, they accessed the plans. What was it? Black Start. Black Start is our exact order of plans of how, if our grid got shut down, how we would then restart the grid, what steps we would take, where everything is held, as far as where the supplies are, what our plans would be for replacing transformers, everything. All of the plans are there. They accessed that. In SolarWinds, they also accessed certain areas of state offices, like the HR department. The HR department is in charge of not only hiring and firing in many cases, but they are also in charge of like making new passes and things like that. New credentials. So if you want a little key card that gets you into a water plant, you're going to need that card or that key fob. Well, they were hacking into those areas. Really think about that when, of course, over the last year and a half, we've heard that China is now infiltrated into our entire infrastructure. They are in our power infrastructure. And the reason that Trump signed that executive order back in 2018 is because they found a transformer with a back door in it. Only 9 transformers taken out, and you would take down our whole grid. That is absolutely terrifying. And I've just noticed a pattern with how they hack and what they hack. It's like there's a forward-facing things, and then you'll see, oh, they hacked this, which everybody talks about, and then this little hack, it's like, Why would they go into the HR department, the exact same areas? They literally showed that they were going into the specific employees and computers that would be able to make new employees, make records. They could transfer. So say Texas water plant, right? They go, oh, hey, somebody from, Nebraska is going to come work for us. A new employee. He's worked for Nebraska for 14 years. He's got a perfect record, perfect attendance, everything else. When in reality, the guy's never been at Nebraska. He is straight from another country. He has false identity. The false identity has been put in on the back end, and they're saying, oh, we're transferring this guy over to your water plant. That guy goes in and puts a back door on the system, and then, of course, bounces out, gets a key fob, gets all of the information. That's the kind of stuff I think is going on right now. It seems like it makes sense, and with this, you don't know. But good reminder to the people that we really got to keep our head on a swivel. Dex, go ahead.
Yeah, but can you imagine a state that we would be in as a nation if all of our police operated identically? That would be kind of a creepy thing to think that it's almost like the entire police force was, controlled by one interest. And I don't know if that just seems rather draconian to me, I think. I don't know. Because this company, Lexipol, could insert, a change in policy and say, publish it out as this is the new, standard. And then boom, every police station around America starts adopting that policy.
Well, it's Big Brother. It makes perfect sense to me. We think that we're also separated by the states, which is part of the the kind of safety net that we set up in the Constitution, that all the states would decide and things like that. But again, it doesn't always work that way, especially when you have massive changes happening over the last 5, 6, 7 years. Dex, go ahead.
Yeah, Lexipol, according to Samson J. Pedrosa in chat, Lexipol is acquired by the Riverside Company, a global private equity firm. So if y'all want to look more into that,
and who owns them? What do you want to bet that you go up the ladder and it's probably owned by an LLC or something that is owned by a very dark colored rock, like the darkest color? What do you think? Let me know in the comments down below. And let's see here. Okay. Hey, steel hauling. Yeah. Jammer, are you not feeling well? I hope you're okay. What's going on with you, Jammer? Somebody says, hope you're feeling well. I kind of heard you weren't feeling well. What was it, yesterday? Stephen McMahon, when I was a Chicago police, a guy got on the job who had retired from New York City. He said it was only minor adjustment in procedure. A guy got on job who had retired from New York City. He said it was only minor adjustment in procedure. Oh, yeah. So Chicago and New York were almost the same, right? Yeah, that makes perfect sense with what we're reading here. And then Google Earth shows Gulf of America now. All things random. We actually showed that yesterday, and what's funny, I don't know if it will still do this, but if you zoomed in, it was still Gulf of Mexico. So yeah, you can see it right here. It's Gulf of America now, which is just so we're in La La Land right now. This is, a lot of people are pumped about this. It is kind of cool. Okay, and then when you zoom in, nothing. Oh, so now they just took that away. That's funny. Dex, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, and today, Apple, for those of you who have iPhones, Apple Maps updated, and they show Gulf of America too. So
I would be curious. Dex suggested this yesterday. If you have a VPN that puts you in Europe or puts you somewhere else, what does that say? When you go to Google Earth through another country, what does that actually say? Because the idea that it would just look like this to us here in America, that the rest of the world didn't change it.
Yeah, and if you're going to do that, do it in either incognito or at least logged out. Because if you're logged in, then Google knows who you are, so they'll assume you're still American just traveling abroad. But do it logged out and see what happens.
Joseph Yanni says, how is Marc feeling? I'm feeling really good today. But I do have 2 more major surgeries. So I have recovered from the last one last month. And yeah, I really appreciate all the prayers, all of the letters. I'm still reading letters from last month. And just really, really appreciate everybody that has been here since day one, since negative day one, like before I even changed the channel names. There's a few people that were subscribed. I can't even remember what it was called. It was probably like a date or something, like like 8179 or something. The channel had no name. Darth V, thank you. Ham E Foxy Trotters, thank you. And again, yeah, thank you guys. I'm hoping that everything is okay. My family, I guess we have a family history of rejecting bone grafts, so doesn't seem like it has. All right. And then we have San Andreas fault fear after 4th California earthquake in 24 hours. So you guys know this has been my side wheelhouse for a very long time as far as earthquakes. As far as the West Coast, the West Coast is in trouble. We are in trouble right now. It is a matter of time when something massive happens. And if San Andreas goes, a really big worry is that this would trigger the rest of the Cascadia subduction zone. So let me show you here. You have San Andreas, right? At the very end and at the top of San Andreas, you essentially have a small gap. And then, of course, you have the start of the Cascadia subduction zone. So imagine with that, if you don't know, and I'm sure most people know now, that would be almost 700 miles of a 9.0 earthquake. So if you are right here in Bend, you are going to feel the same 9.0 earthquake that they feel up here in Seattle. That is insane to me. The entire North American plate is going to shift. And if you're standing somewhere, say, let's go to here, right? Here's a street in Seattle. If you're standing right here in the middle of the road, you are going to physically, your person will be moved about 45 feet this way. So you'll be right over here. Now, again, the whole ground will move, so everything will shift over. That to me is also just wild. And then we will have a guaranteed tsunami and this is only if we have a full margin rupture. A full margin rupture meaning that this whole line goes from Vancouver, from Canada, all the way to the beginning of California. So if this whole thing goes, we are all screwed. And this will affect America more than any natural disaster that we have ever had in history. And what this has to do with San Andreas, when you have this big of an earthquake and it's that close to what is already on edge, Cascadia subduction zone, there have been actual officials I have spoken to that have believed that this should have happened 3 or 4 years ago. There is tons of stuff that now backs that up. Over the last 3 years, we've seen not only scientists that are out there like Chris Goldfinger, but they're registering that there are all of these essentially signs that pressure is trying to bust through and that it has stopped moving. Once it locks up, and you want to see pressure release, once it locks up, then you're in trouble. And I believe that's something that they do know. There's a lot of stuff that the government knows that we don't. And it is why they have quietly been retrofitting a lot of places all the way from Seattle down to Sacramento. Retrofitting is essentially taking brick buildings and adding rebar. It's a huge thing to do for a building, and they've been doing it. So either way, though, places like Seattle or Pioneer Square are going to be turned to dust. It will be much like they portrayed in the movie How It Ends, I believe. Yeah, where he shows him on I-5 walking towards Seattle, and the whole city is gray because of all of the construction debris and everything else that has collapsed. San Andreas has now been active. So if you're in California, I'd highly recommend getting food, water. But if you are on East Coast, if you're in Chicago or New York, which have the same police systems, doesn't matter where you are, this will affect you. When these big ones go, it is going to be something that it's going to be a once-in-a-lifetime thing. It is going to be unbelievable. No one will truly fathom how bad it is actually going to be. So people on the West Coast, please be prepared if you aren't already. Most people should know about this by now. But again, a lot of people just choose to be blissfully ignorant. The 24 hours, you had several earthquakes on the San Andreas. If you're in California, you already are familiar with earthquakes. Ilea and some of our other Fogel fam, wonderful mod Ilea, she's in California. And of course, anybody that lives in California has experienced earthquakes. They have a bunch of smaller ones. But when they get that big one, it is going to be something like we have never seen before. It is going to be worse. I know it is going to be worse than the Boxing Day tsunami. It's going to be worse than Japan in 2011. 2004 and 2011, I believe that combined, you will not have as many people perish as you will with that one. All right. And then, Dex, do you want to talk about the federal judge orders the Trump admin to restore public health?
This is kind of weird. So a federal judge on Tuesday ordered the Department of Health and Human Services and the Center for Control and the FDA to restore web pages that were taken down. These were based on the executive order coming from the president, which controls those organizations. So I guess the real thing that people are sort of some people are scratching their head on, and people that don't like them are cheering for it, is that, we're getting to the point now where judges are deciding what web pages are allowed to exist and not exist on a website for a department that is under the control of and part of the presidency. And that's a very interesting position to be in, I think, as we're walking into interesting times. It's not just this one judge. There are lots of judge activities that have gone on, or court activities that have happened in the last few days, trying to stop and prevent the president from performing his duties. And I think a lot of people are questioning whether or not those are legal and if they'll even uphold. And I think what we're going to see is it's probably going to have to work its way up through the system, because it's real easy for lower court judges to make a ruling, and then that's a law, or that's an interpretation of the law, and then it has to escalate up to the next one and the next one, and potentially jump straight up to the Supreme Court and get settled. But that takes time. And especially when it comes to things like, the money issues where they're finding fraud and corruption, that time allows for cleanup. It allows for people to cover up the tracks. It allows for people to, make sure that if once it does get approved, where he's allowed to do what he should have been allowed to do to begin with, that they've, hidden all of the nasty things, or at least covered their own tails, so to speak. And I think that's just my opinion, but we'll see how this plays out. But I mean, this is the ridiculousness that we're at this point, where judges are literally telling departments that are controlled by the president that they have to put a web page back up, or they have to control a website that's there. So I don't think we've been to this level of conflict, even amongst our different powers and authority of our government. Yeah,
even when it was at its worst. I want to highlight two comments and go back to the earthquake here for a second. New Brunswick, Canada guy says San Andreas went 7.9 in 1812, same year as New Madrid quakes. New Brunswick, that's another reason. In my hour and a half long interview with Chris Goldfinger, he has his own TED Talk on Cascadia Subduction Zone. He's one of the, he says, 40 lead scientists studying it, but he's like basically the main guy. He essentially said 25 years ago, if you said, hey, could an earthquake cause another earthquake or trigger a different earthquake, they would have said, oh, you're crazy. But now they have absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, and this is something that they have done over and over and over again. They can absolutely prove without a shadow of a doubt that an earthquake can cause a volcano can cause an earthquake can cause another earthquake, that there's these antipodes. What's funny is I remember Dutch saying that years and years and years ago, before a lot of, mainstreamers did. But again, they can prove that now. Absolutely no doubt about it. New Madrid and the East Coast stuff that's going on, there have been weird stories we have covered as well. And then another comment that I want to point out, and I totally hear you. Kurt Bilyeu, says, why worry about the San Andreas? Lived right next to it my whole life. Can't control it. Well, I'm sure that you're very much happy that you lived next to it your whole life and it didn't go off. No, you don't want to live your life worrying, but most disasters can be survived. And that's the thing. Imagine if you lived your whole life next to it and you had a wonderful life, but it ended because of something that was preventable. Imagine not surviving a disaster because, say, you were stuck somewhere for a week and you would have survived if you had food. There's a billion examples. Just saw another one, like the couple that went to the Outback back in the mid-2010s. And they went to the Outback and got stuck out in the desert. The husband died or the fiance died or whatever. There's things like that. The ways to perish that could be prevented just by pre-thinking about things. The military thinks about things beforehand. They drill for any kind of event that may happen. And if you look at what the military drills for on the West Coast, they're drilling for massive earthquakes. You don't worry about it. You prepare for it. You don't stress about it. You don't sit there every day and worry about the San Andreas. But one thing to think about is, how are you going to be set up when the largest natural disaster of our lifetimes, of multiple lifetimes, happens? That's what I have I have to that. But I totally hear you. You don't want to worry and you don't want to stress your entire life. But at the same time, earthquakes, there's a lot of different little things that you can do to set yourself up for the best possible result, including knowing where to go when you have an earthquake. Get away from windows. Get out away from power lines if you can. Heck, stay away from water. Find high ground if you're on the West Coast. That is for dang sure. And then, of course, also stay away from anything power or water related, anything like that. Gas related, stay away from gas stations, things like that. So again, I hope that people prepare. I hope that people do even a couple minutes of research into what you should do if that happens, especially if you're in California. You don't need to bite all your nails off, but you should stock up on food and water. When the San Andreas goes, when Cascadia goes, nobody is going to be going north and south. Those freeways are all going to collapse. They know that at a 7.5, which is a much smaller earthquake, that all of the overpasses will collapse going from Vancouver down to California. So you will not have somebody else coming in to save you. When I talked to the guy that worked at the FEMA, he said that every single person at that were told to have go bags in their trunks, and they were all provided with them. They have it for even a short trip. And what else he said was really, really terrifying is he said, we don't have supplies for this. When the Cascadia subduction zone happens, and I believe California is probably in the same position, he said, we don't have enough supplies. We will need out-of-state help. Put that into perspective when you have no freeways, no ways in. That's a bigger disaster than you can even imagine. Think about 5 days to get water to the Superdome. You think it's going to be good when you have every single freeway collapsed for 3 states? I don't. And I don't think that they are going to have it handled whatsoever. I'm not going to trust somebody else to come save me. I'm going to save myself, and I'm going to do the best I can to make sure that my family is okay. I don't know why. I feel like a lot of parents, if parents are, they're much more proactive about it than some others. But I also think the younger people too, they don't worry as much because you still have that like I'm invincible thing. As you get older and as you have multiple close calls, you really value life and you realize how beautiful it is. Before we move on, make sure to go check out another thing that we recommend and that could get you through any kind of disaster. Grid Down bug outs. These are awesome systems. The actual bug out itself from Grid Down is an amazing, built like a tank solar generator. It is high capacity. It just in general, the main unit itself has 1.61 kilowatt hours. This is what most people are going to end up getting. This is the one right behind me here. You can kind of see it, but it is large and in charge, but at the same time, it's lithium iron phosphate, so it's carryable, it's portable, and it is going to really hold just an incredible amount of kilowatt hours compared to some of its competitors. Again, this is the coolest thing about it, though. All of the Grid Down units all come with EMP shield. So when you are getting these, you are getting an EMP shield protected solar generator. Again, you can charge, if you do end up getting the this package, this is the best one because you can end up getting a 30% tax rebate, which takes a giant chunk off the total, and you'll get credit for it. This one has over 4,000 kilowatt hours, almost 4,300. So it is a very, very incredible unit. You can even go up to the top one with 2 XPs and get almost 7,000 kilowatt hours. Again, very, 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 very impressive system. Got a 30 amp right in the back for you van lifers or RVers. And it is, again, portable. So they also have, of course, the readouts. If you wanted to outfit a house or a cabin or something else and you want to be fully off-grid, then go check out their, of course, their panels and their walls as well. You can get a 13.5 kilowatt readout, or you can even go for a package like the 108 kilowatt hours. Huge systems. So you can do pretty much anything through this. If you do go through us, you will end up not only getting a discount, but you'll help us out as well. We're on our own, so we appreciate everybody, every bit of support. It's not required, but it is very, very appreciated. And we don't represent a company unless we 1,000% believe in it. And everybody says that. I feel like everybody says that, but you can look back. We've only had 5 or 6 affiliates in the lifetime of this channel, where some might have 400 or 500 because they're rotating every single day. Israel backs Trump. His Unleash Hell plan for the Strip if hostages aren't freed by Saturday. And I believe it's Saturday at noon, to expand on what I was saying earlier. Dex, so first of all, this whole thing is absolutely turning, sideways. Now we have kind of a deadline, and we have a canceled release of the hostages with just, I think, isn't it just 3 left on their end?
Yeah, I don't know the exact number that are left, but yeah, this cancellation happened a couple days ago, as we reported, and they said that they were going to stop, and they were doing it because an action from Israel that wasn't, I think, paying them or repatriating some money or some other things not for them. And there was a break in the deal, and that was going to cause them to not release the hostages. Of course, Israel said the same thing. Hey, if you're not releasing them, then you're breaking the ceasefire deal. So, for right now, the ceasefire deal's broken. The question is, will it get back on track? And Trump has said, hey, it's got to be on track by, noon Saturday on the Shabbat, and that's it. And if it doesn't happen then it's game over.
And what does that mean? So what if we get to Saturday afternoon, it's 12:01, and they don't give them back? Will we see shock and awe again? Will we see them end up going in just fire and fury? The thing is I believe our adversaries kind of look at Donald and say he's going to do it. So will they call his bluff and say, I think they know that he would do it. But at the same time, you know that, of course, Donald has tried to keep his legacy, and he's talked about it, about a peace, about, that. So he does say these, but just like with Kim Jong-un, he went fire and fury. He's like, we'll, wipe you off the map. But what ended up happening? North Korea got scared, and they said, oh, okay, and they backed off. They stopped launching missiles, or at least for the time being. The fire and fury thing, it does work because we're the United States. We have the biggest and baddest military in the world, the most advanced, and we have the most nukes. So you're really playing with fire when you're, when you're trying to mess with the USA. So what's going to end up happening here? And all cabinet members expressed support for U.S. President Donald Trump's demand for the release of the hostages by noon on Shabbat, which normally any of these kind of holy days and things like that, that's where most people in our community look at that and go, oh, well, that's when something will happen, or that's when things could really go sideways. Normally it doesn't, because a lot of the days that the bad stuff happens doesn't have meaning to us here in America. It has something to do with our adversaries' importance of days. All right. And again, thank you everybody that has joined us today. Thank you to a couple new members. I appreciate that over the last week. Thank you again for 21 months. Wages World says almost 2 years and a whole bunch of new family. Hey, thank you. All Things Random, thank you for the super. Says AI scares me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate that. And then All Things Random again says Google Earth shows Gulf of America now. Thank you again. Stephen McMahon again says nothing I was ever given in police training was something that was secret. You would have to be in very specialized units to get the secrets. So this I know. So another thing that I learned when going to Ocean Shores and talking to the police there, I wanted to know what their plan was for when the tsunami happens. Ocean Shores is going to be underwater. Kind of related to the earlier story, Ocean Shores is going to be underwater. They know that it's going to be over 60 feet. The highest point is 55 feet. They know it's going to be way higher than that. They think in some ports close to that, and by like Mo Clips, it's going to be 125 feet because of the jetty out in the water. So it basically a little lip, and the wave is going to hit, and then that lip, that natural lip, is going to launch it up even higher. And they say as high as 125 plus feet. We know this because they've actually moved the 130-foot high evacuation point for Mo Clips because they don't believe it's going to be high enough. They didn't say that to the public until much later. They are now putting in these monitoring stations. About a year ago, they had a really close call where they put in all these monitoring stations. The UW is monitoring them 24/7 right now. But Ocean Shores, I talked to every one of the Ocean Shore police officers separately, and I said, hey, what's the plan for Cascadia? I don't know. Oh, I haven't got that training yet. Oh, okay, so are you new? I've been here 3 years. In 3 years, in a place that will be underwater, the police officer did not know a single thing about, it didn't even know what Cascadia Subduction Zone was. That to me shows that it's not just a local thing. Like, I bet you many police officers won't actually know what to do in these things, and it's not your fault. It's the fault of your superiors and the system that's running it. It's obviously you guys are overstaffed or understaffed, overworked, out there responding to calls. You don't have time for a lot of the training that they should be implementing. They should have a full staff on the streets and a full staff training almost at all times if you look at how police works and how it should work. But that's just my opinion. What's yours? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you, Fogel fam. I appreciate all of you that made it tonight. Thank you. Let's see. Christoph isn't on. We have Deadeye Danny. We have Ryan Alter in the house. MJ, thank you. Deborah Curry. Dennis Swanson. Backass World's Weird World. You're always a tongue twister there. Too busy. Stormtroopers for the Empire. Yep. The folder is on a shelf, waiting for the event to start before anyone knows what to do. Well, I just brought a thought to my head. In the first few hours of a disaster is going to be important, and in the first 3 days is going to in the first 24 hours of a massive disaster, you really need to know what to do. And if you practice it, you're going to have muscle memory of what to do. We had a smaller earthquake, but it was centered right underneath us. My family was out of our old apartment in 15 seconds. So again, if you practice something and have things ready, we have our go bags in one of the mudroom kind of seats. It's like an ottoman thing. You open it up and the bags are inside. Right at the door, grab it and go. And nobody can walk in our house and they're not going to see a bunch of go bags lined up against the door. It's hidden, it's discreet, and it's available at any time. Everybody should have something like that if they can. If you can't afford to do something like that now, do it in little steps. Also, utilize the internet while we have it. Facebook Marketplace, Buy Nothing, Offer Up. All these places you can get really, really cheap deals. And some people pass on survival gear and things like this. They even pass on survival food. A lot of people get rid of it. If somebody else is going to be dumb enough to get rid of it for a cheap price, then go ahead and get it. All right, you guys, have a great night. Thank you so much. I appreciate all of you. Dex, thank you so much for your service today.
Much love. Great job, brother.
It is now time for the shoutro. It's not an outro. It's not a shout out. It's a shoutro.
Smoking finer. I'm a 40 bottle bucket jingles from the corner. You rollerblading, I'd strike lightning like a Viking. Little kids on a mission, no supervision. Fell through the system, homes go missing, except for the